Hey there, Kelly O'Connell here, author and attorney, and I have a topic for you today that has been on my mind for a long time, actually. Hope you're doing well. Kind of transitioning here into fall. Hopefully you're doing well where you're at. We've had a lot of rain, though, here in the Southwest. I mean, every other day it seems to be a big thunderstorm, so there's a lot of moisture out there, and I've had a lot of allergies. Hopefully you have not suffered as well, but here is my theme. America is quickly losing its societal mind as absurd contradictions signal certain death. Sounds ominous, but what I'm thinking about is that it seems like you've got so many contradictions that are going on, and they're coming out of the media, and they're coming out of government that it just feels crazy. And I'll just use one, that all of these people at the border showed up, and they were trying to cross over, and the Border Patrol sent over a number of officers, including men on horses, and then some pictures were taken, and these were Haitians coming across the water, coming across the Rio Grande, and they had long reins, and it looked by some angles that the reins were out there, and there weren't any that showed people being hit, but you could see the reins and think to yourself, well, are these reins being used to whip these people? And if you studied the video, if you studied the pictures, you see there was no contact between the reins and the people. But Joe Biden, in one of these strange things that he does, got deeply offended. And he's cognitively in decline, so you don't know where his mind is. But somebody told him and showed him pictures and said these guys on horseback are strapping, or what he called strapping, and they're whipping these Haitians. And so the person who took the photographs of these pictures said, they were not being whipped, but we took these action shots, and the guy who is the head, Mayorkas, said there will be an investigation, and then he came out and condemned it. But Biden gets up and says, this is not the kind of a country we are, and we're not going to do this type of thing. And I'm listening to this, and then his vice president, Kamala, gets on, and it's reminiscent of the days of slavery, of course. And I'm thinking, the only way to take these people seriously is to suggest that they have strong human rights background and demand for fair treatment for all people, right? But when Joe Biden was leaving Afghanistan, all of these Americans and allies were being left behind. He didn't say anything about human rights. He said, we've had a great victory. And his staff said, there's only a couple hundred Americans left behind. But now it comes out that all of the people that were aided the Americans are being hunted. And, there's another article that says that, women are not going to be allowed in Kabul University, whatever. But all of this biometric data, and that biometric means having to do with your body and identifying your body through fingerprints or through blood type or a photo of your iris, whatever, are going to be used to find these people who they consider to be traitors. They're going to be hunted down. And where is the outrage and demand for human rights in these situations? So, I mean, you're talking about a few people on the border versus hundreds of thousands of Afghanis and undoubtedly thousands of Americans that are still left behind. It gives a surreal sense as to what's happening out there. And what you've got is this idea that the government will define reality and then you have to react to it. And that, brings up the idea of 1984 and Brave New World and all this. Dystopia, what they call dystopia, which is kind of means a broken land or a broken society. And it's scary, and there's some pushback there as well, but the people that we have elected to defend us and represent us aren't doing a very good job. Now you've got individuals like Cruz, the Senator Cruz from Texas, who I think is Ted Cruz has got a very strong presence, and Hawley is fighting back, and there's a number of people that are pushing back, including President Trump, who's demanding common sense. But there are so many contradictions out there. But let me get to those. Let me get into this essay here. American greatness, America's original focus on faith and logic were tied to our greatness, as the foundation of a rational God became the core for a linear, rational society seeking fairness and prosperity. But now every variety of contradiction, neuro-sickness, brain sickness, in other words, mind sickness, and hypocrisy is extolled by liberals. The Democratic Party, like an aged grand yacht, sinks in flames as they rage on the deck, dashing to and fro in ecstatic madness while submerging into oblivion. And I'm thinking of, there's this great image out of the medieval age when they talked about the ship of fools, and there were these people that had taken off on this doomed voyage. And that's what I see going on. I think that the Democratic Party is destroying itself. They have to be, right? But at the same time, they're destroying America. And they're so excited over all these changes that they're making. While the ship is in flames and it's sinking. And as we watch Joe Biden as Mad Captain Ahab and Nancy Pelosi as fatally compromised Queen Jezebel, it encapsulates our plight, or it really kind of sums up the problem that we're dealing with. Crazy Nancy, who's so awful to listen to. She's so strident, and the things that she's fighting for, she's 80 years old. I don't know, maybe she's still got a perfect brain, but it doesn't seem to be tracking with reality. These guys are destroying their party, and Joe was already out of his mind, but this idea of suicide murder comes to mind, where a person makes it their mission, even if they have to kill themselves, that they're going to take out some person or some group of people, and it's very unsettling. It was unsettling to think about all those people being left behind in Afghanistan and being defended or cared for by the Taliban, which are, speaking of medieval in their thinking, and all of these people crossing the border who are sick with COVID, while the government puts on this mockery of defending the public health by demanding vaccines or you're going to be fired. And the Biden getting up to fight for vaccines before they've even been, they haven't even been verified yet, and so it just seems crazy. So Western supremacy, I want to bring this up. Rodney Stark in The Victory of Reason summarizes the West. We're in the West. It's Western Europe and America. The British Empire summarizes the West's development from also-rans or ne'er-do-wells, or whatever you want to call them, into world beaters. We became superb in the world somehow. How did the West gain preeminence? And he writes, to sum up, and this is his book, and I've got it. It's a great book if you want to get it. To sum up, the rise of the West was based on 4 primary victories of reason. The first was the development of faith and progress within Christian theology. The second victory was the way that faith and progress translated into technical and organizational innovations, many of them fostered by monastic estates. The third was that, thanks to Christian theology, reason informed both political philosophy and practice to the extent that responsive states sustaining a substantial degree of personal freedom appeared in medieval Europe. The final victory involved the application of reason to commerce, resulting in the development of capitalism within the state safe havens provided by responsive states. These were the victories by which the West was won. And I just want to throw something out there. I looked up Rodney Stark, who's I think now in his 90s or 80s, as a writer, and his biography says at one point he wasn't Christian, he was kind of a cultural Christian, but as he kept researching these books that he wrote, he kind of talked himself into Christianity being the basis of reality. So in any event, crazy decisions, but right in front of us are leaders who were once afraid to show their bias, now wildly pantomime and boast of their goals. They forget not everyone agrees with their wildly destructive and partisan actions, instead reveling in the gruesome damage done to devil America while fantasizing about how great will the globe be without Uncle Sam to kick around, which is immense folly. Killing America to get rid of it just feels like what's going on is, in a way, it's an attack against the church. It's an attack against how America was formed. And Tucker Carlson just stated that the Christianity is being replaced by the cult of COVID. But it feels like the left is really going after the essence of rationalism in the West and in America. And what Stark was arguing is that while you had these ancient movements, philosophical movements in Greece, the religion didn't bring them in, because the religions of the ancient world of paganism were all irrational. And so in their irrationality, they couldn't take this information in and grow from it. It took Christianity, which claims that God is just and fair, all-knowing, all-powerful. That as a background can bring in logic and philosophy and put these ideas together and really grow from it. And that's what Stark is claiming, where we came from historically. Now, here are 13 leftist contradictions that are currently going on right now that are driving me crazy, and probably you too. The claim that conquering COVID is America's goal and therefore demanding massive vaccine campaigns while regularly allowing millions of untested and sick illegals into America. That's driving me crazy. That any individual or group actions to stop Trump were legal by definition, and those involved will not be held accountable, no matter how legally or factually mistaken. So you got people in the FBI misusing their opportunity, their power, their time, and deciding to go after Trump or being sent after Trump. And then when they're exposed, like this attorney was just exposed that he was working for Hillary Clinton when he pretended that he was an independent attorney who just ran into the idea that Trump was colluding with Russia. So he's going to be prosecuted. But hardly anybody out of this Russia hoax has been punished. And so what this puts out is the idea for the most unscrupulous people in government, they can undermine and lie and degrade and put out calumny or false attacks on their foes to get rid of them. And that's what Hillary was trying to do. And all of this, if you see on both sides, all of the resistance to Trump, I think, was ultimately coming out of this idea that he wasn't part of the system and he had no right to come in and judge anybody or to attack the system and try to upgrade it because everybody's place was set. And that's how it seemed when Trump came into office, that everything was of a piece. Everything made sense until he started going after these people and these organizations, and then you realized how much corruption there really was. All right, here's another leftist contradiction. Stating illegal Haitians, third, that all whites are innate, biased, racist, who deserve any setback they receive. That's part of critical race theory. And he states illegal Haitians shan't be strapped because they are precious while casually abandoning Americans and allies to torture and death in Afghanistan. Stating, and by the way, Joe Biden got up and said, this is not who we are. We don't strap people at the border. But I mean, he's also said who we are is abandoning our agreements if it makes it easier to leave a country that we don't want to be in anymore. All right, another contradiction. Stating fighting global warming is a reason to shut down U.S. oil production while then begging other countries to ramp up their oil production to help the U.S. Another one, ran on unity message while defying GOP on every issue, refusing any consensus. And the Democrats are treating the Republicans like they're scum and can't be trusted to make any deals with. And then they get up in the media and complain about how the GOP won't cooperate. This guy in New York is a master at this. Schumer is a master at misstating facts to try to put people down, put another party down, implying that only anti-Trump is righteous, yet displaying incompetence on all policy changes. So whatever policy they changed from Trump, they did it with the theory that Trump was a devil. But all of these changes, like the ones at the border, are failing. And Biden boasted he created the vaccine, yet Trump's COVID vaccine is Joe's only poll win. It's the only thing he's ahead in the polls with. His numbers have fallen something like 15 or 20 points since he went into office. He's going to be in the 30s here pretty soon with all of his failures. All right. Biden supports General Milley even after he officially undermined Trump in contacting China. There's nothing that's going to be done there. 10, claims Afghanistan exit is a spectacular success as it's rated the worst foreign U.S. mistake. 11, enriched by Sun Hunter's foreign graft while pretending he had no idea of scamming. 12, constantly lying and confabulating about every controversial issue. I mean, look, Joe's a lie machine, right? And 13, pretends competence while not answering any questions, claiming they won't let me. All right, so here's where we get down to the nub of this. Leftist supremacy. Communist advocacy presumes simultaneous attacks on the political, military, arts, judicial, science, education, and religious components of society. By seeding crazy ideas into policies across the board, the left creates a Potemkin village, or a fake village, sense of unreality. A Potemkin village is something that the Russians would do. If America went over to visit Russia, they'd build a fake village to show how successful they were, when in reality people were starving, and there was no health in the society. Now, specifically, if leaders can create a unified impression of maniacal decision-making, the elites can therefore foster a miasma of doom and powerlessness in the face of bizarre standards. In other words, the world becomes crazy, so you just accept it. Ultimately, they must either destroy a society or project out that the society is undermined and therefore insolvent. Then a socialist imperative will be imposed. a little change here. The Dems must destroy. So, lying is a worldview. What are we talking about here? Ultimately, we're talking about a worldview or a view of the world which is built on lies. Now, to purposefully build a national program from contradictions and lies while pretending their actions are above criticism is certifiable madness. In essence, leftism demands its followers sacrifice to honesty in the battle for world socialism. Specifically, Biden's pathological lying is sourced to a number of mental health disorders, or might be confabulation as the result of lost cognition. When people lose their mind, they begin to use lies as a way of explaining things. And since they don't all have the information anymore, it's more and more just dishonesty, even though they may not be trying to do that. So, according to Christian tradition, on the other hand, lying itself is the hallmark of Satan, indicating deep spiritual sickness. Certainly, Marxism's radioactive cynicism presupposes lying as a hallowed tactic. Because in Marxism, anything that you do that furthers leftism, that furthers socialism, Marxism, communism, is allowed. One can describe criminal insanity as living in a perpetual state of dishonesty. In all events, perpetual dissembling or lying cannot be sustained unless the entire populace becomes debased, cynical, and inured or kind of indifferent to deceit. As this transition is occurring in America, we are simultaneously devolving towards just another third world failure. Please pray for the United States and God help us. So, what do you think about that? I mean, I've considered this for a long time, and it's a very, very scary thing that we're going through, because it's like we're giving up logic to achieve something new, and the thing that we're achieving is truly, it's evil because it's made out of lies. All right, let me get to a little bit of weird news for you. Okay, the first story is this really strange and kind of sad story from California. There's something called the Fawn Fire, and they were trying to figure out how it started. Well, there was a call from a lady, and she said she was stuck, and she had been, I think she claimed, had been stuck in the bushes, and they came out there, and this fire was going, and they had the firefighters had talked to her, the police, and I think it's up near Shasta Lake, Mount Shasta, and what they found out is this lady had in her pocket a couple of CO2 containers, little cans, and that she was claimed that she had been walking to Oregon, and she had looked down and seen some water and thought that there was bear urine in it, and she wanted to drink it, but she wanted to make it safe, and so she tried to start a fire, and it was too wet for the fire to work, and so she got down and drank the water with the supposed bear urine in it, and it's just totally bizarre. Alexandra Suverneva is now charged with felony arson. And so, I mean, the story she comes up with is more strange than arson itself. So she's actually a very smart, or at least intelligent person, and has a background in chemistry and in all these things as a tutor in various things, and the Fawn Fire is up to 8,500 acres. But so here's the quote. She said that she was she became thirsty and found a puddle of water in a dry creek bed, but that the water allegedly had bear urine in it. So she tried to filter the water with a tea bag, which doesn't make any sense. She said that didn't work, so she attempted to make a fire to boil the water. She stated it was too wet for the fire to start, so she drank the water anyway and then continued walking uphill from the creek bed. That makes no sense. And she was found in her pocket with also marijuana. So she's under arrest, and she claims to be a shaman. She actually sounds mentally ill, doesn't she? And she is she's I guess Eastern European. She's got blonde hair and only 30 years old, looks a little bit older, looks like she spent a lot of time outside. But that is one of the strangest things I've ever heard. Now here's another weird story for you. A lady in Florida, her last name is King, was found in the back of a Jeep at a dealership, and she had her legs open and was pleasuring herself. She was a homeless lady, and so she was arrested. So anyway, weird news for you, and a lot of strange things going on. Thank you for tuning in, Kelly O'Connell podcast called Knockout Radio, and hope you will give me a thumbs up and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the flip side tomorrow. Have a great day. Ciao.